the worst thing to happen to a human being is to be unseen.
Right.
When the society basically decides that this person is not interesting enough to even be even have an identity.
Are we trying to measure ourselves to that statistic, or are we measuring that statistic to ourselves, whether that statistic is right for us or not?
And then you ask people how do they rate themselves as investors. 90% of the people will say they are above average investors.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Pathik podcast. As you might know, this is a very special series which involves a very special guest, one of the youngest fund managers in this country. He spent 17 years at a corporate stint working for one of the country's biggest mutual funds. But he left it all and started his own fund called Bristlecone Equity Fund. I hope you all enjoy the conversation that follows. Welcome everyone. Hello Vihang.
Hi Sonic.
So I think one of the most interesting sounding topics has now arrived at our desk. It's the anxiety of being average.
Yeah, so we are living in an age and time when you know there is exceptionalism everywhere, right? Whichever medium you open, people are climbing Mount Everest. People are founding startups at 20,
Right.
right? People are doing everything exceptional. But when you look at your own life, you feel that I'm not doing anything exceptional.
Yeah.
I am strictly average,
Correct.
and that's not okay,
Yeah.
right? So I feel that a lot of us are under that constant anxiety of trying to become something above average.
Correct.
I feel that's a great topic, Swanik.
Yeah, I think the sum total of all the thumbnails, captions, and one liners on the social media read like almost have to have these ingredients of at what age did this person do this, right? Something that is above and beyond our realm of mundane understanding, right?
So I'm a believer. I'm a student of evolutionary biology. We are. We live in the current day and age, and it's been relevant only for the last maybe 50 years. Our form of life, but our programming is 3 million years old.
Right.
Right. Our software is not updated. Right, and it's too fast to get updated.
Yeah.
So think about it when you are a hunter gatherer in a village. You're doing your thing. You're just joining your group in hunting an animal, or your farmer, or and you're not doing anything exceptional, and that's okay because everyone around, no one around is doing anything exceptional.
Right.
Right. Once in a while somebody builds something, does something. That's a once in a lifetime phenomena when you observe it. And maybe you have that slight jealousy, slight anxiety towards that guy, but it dies down quickly. You return to your farm or you return to your cave, right? But now every moment you open your screen, you're seeing 20 people doing exceptional things.
Right.
Now what does that do to your brain?
Correct.
It makes you believe that you know uh, I should also be out there doing something exceptional.
Yeah.
And that's where the anxiety comes in.
Yeah, and in fact, you mentioned screens, and I think screens are the key part when you have rapidly changing visuals in front of your eyes. Now, our eyes are billions of years old, is an understatement. So, the way we have processed visuals and images, right, and the way we relay them back to our head, I just feel like the sum of all our desires is encapsulated inside a frame that we constantly think about, and that is also so constantly changing. Yesterday it was to get a Bugatti, a Ferrari by you, right? You had self help gurus talk about it with like 20-second sound bites. And then tomorrow it changes to something else, maybe some kind of a sophisticated fashion trend. But it is always something that the screen is screaming out to you and telling you that, listen, you don't have this and you don't know the experience of it. And I guess that uh, goes against your reality, which is, I think, fundamentally, statistically, for most of us, is average.
So Swanik, so basically on this topic of screens also, it is not natural for our brain to process, so many different visuals, with any sanity. I'm looking at people at Santorini, white spaces and nice summer dresses, and suddenly somebody showing me a picture of a startup founder giving some gyan,
Yeah.
right? And nothing about it resonates with my life,
Correct.
right? My life is that life of a guy who is getting shoved in a local train, sweaty shirts, weird odors, right?
Yes.
And how am I gonna feel?
The key word is loser. Like, I think all of us have had a phase where we just felt like we are losers. You know,
Right.
that is getting magnified. I think average is now equaling loser.
So, but the brain doesn't understand that this is fake,
Correct.
right? It's somewhat also interesting. Now you have all these behind the scenes series on, various OTT, where they show you the unfiltered lives of actors. But if you know the industry, even that is so much filtered.
Yeah, it's completely sanitized, that portrayal.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, these celebs want to be portrayed in a certain sense as an ideal, even in their personal life. Like, it's crazy. They're not just trying to imply that they have perfect lives through films and television, but now they are through OTT trying to go above and beyond and even like go into the documentary space and hijack that as well.
Exactly, exactly. You watch, I don't know if you notice this. If you watch movies about 30-40 years ago, they had a lot of imperfections. You could see someone, in sweaty shirts.
Correct.
Because you're on that set and you're working. Who's going to change the shirt? But today you don't see all that, right?
Exactly.
You have like picture perfect skin tones, perfect lighting, but and all that does to your brain is to tell you that you are not doing something right.
Yes.
You ought to do something more, right? You're strictly being average, and that's not good. I feel that there is a need to talk about this and to help people understand that it is perfectly fine being average. I, for one, consider myself very average, and I'm proud about it. Right? What one needs to possibly deviate from is not trying to be exceptional, but trying to be good in a specific domain.
Right.
Right? That is a great aspiration to have. I am myself, and I have a slight edge in one thing, and I could try to be irreplaceable in that domain. I feel that's a good pursuit.
Do you think that over time, how we have viewed exceptionalism, how we have viewed excellence, how we have viewed success has started becoming cosmetic? Because, like, I think over time, what is a person supposed to do when their reality does not reflect real life? I think the only way is to cosmetically change your life. It can be on an outward level, but it can also be in several other ways. Like,
No, completely. Some of the basic things like aging gracefully, we not accepted.
yeah,
Right? Having wrinkles, gray hair, no hair. These are things which are completely not accepted.
right.
And that kind of keeps you uh, on a treadmill all your life,
Right.
and then the anxiety creeps in.
Hmm. The tyranny of the lifelong treadmill.
One idea that I have, I spoke about it in our last podcast about identity.
Right.
It's a very important concept. In Greek philosophy, there is a thing called thymos, right, which is basically the spirit. Now, this author Francis Fukuyama, he basically researched that why do uprisings happen? Uprisings don't happen because of economic inequality. There is enough inequality in many places of the world where there are no uprisings.
Right.
He said that uprisings happen when people are not seen enough.
Okay.
When the thymos in them, when the spirit is not recognized by someone.
Ah.
The worst thing to happen to a human being is to be unseen.
Right.
When the society basically decides that this person is not interesting enough to even be even have an identity, that is when the collective gets together and goes for a revolution. So right now the biggest problem that we have in our generation is this crisis of identity,
Right.
that we fear irrelevance.
Ah.
I am 35-year-old, a viewer. I'm 35-year-old, for example. I have not started a founder. I'm not a startup founder. I am not financially independent. I have not traveled the world.
Yeah.
Am I irrelevant? And that's something that the human mind cannot accept.
I think one of the funny parts of this world is at least whoever I have followed over time acquire real growth, real purpose, and I would say real exceptionalism in the field where they didn't really care about the rest of the world. I think it happens after accepting your average. After, like, I guess it's a Taoist quote that you start becoming extraordinary the moment you have accepted you are ordinary.
One after Tao, let's quote Yogi Berra. He said that 90% of the people feel they are above average.
Ah.
So, and that's true for stock markets.
Ah, yes. Oh, that brings stock markets as an interesting.
You ask people about how would they rate. There are studies which are done. You ask people how do they rate themselves as investors. 90% of the people will say they are above average investors. Statistically, that is not possible, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Only 50% people can be above average. The rest are below average, right?
Yeah. In fact, I don't know, over time I've kind of realized is that I don't know, most of the genuinely successful people, they are successful out of avoiding the foolish mistakes that the crowd does, which believes that they are exceptional. Exactly. Right. In fact, that's what I think. I think one of the major insights I got from Jain Investments itself also was that simply avoid mistakes in today's day and age and let the overall crowd, the herd, make their mistakes. Like, you are not going to convince them that they are wrong in trying to pursue exceptionalism. All you can do is identify that anxiety in you as well and manage to just get out of that anxiety. Like, I don't think the pursuit of uninterrupted growth is today going to frankly lead to any healthy like long term mastery.
So you make a great point actually. All his life, Charlie Munger has preached this. He said that in order to be exceptional, you have to avoid mistakes for long enough. One of his quotes was, "Tell me where I will die, and I will never go there." Right? That is how you live long. Right? And he lived long. He knows what he's saying. Even in investments, why is it that the most intelligent investors don't make the most returns? The reason is that the most intelligent investors believe that they should have exceptional returns to make great money.
Right.
And in pursuit of those exceptional returns, they make exceptional mistakes and go bankrupt. While an average Joe, you would see that there are so many people who are complete nobodies, petrol pump attendants, dying as millionaires. All that they did was, earned, spent, saved, and compounded.
Uh-huh.
It's actually pretty average,
Right.
right? But average done for a long period of time becomes exceptional.
With enough patience, I guess enough personal understanding.
I also read this somewhere. It's pretty interesting that throughout history, the people who are exceptionally health conscious, right, were more likely to die early.
Oh.
And the reason for that is that those are the people who were most amenable to consuming the latest elixir of youth,
Ah.
which turned out to be a poison,
Right.
and they died early.
Oh man.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
If you ask the centenarians, for example, what have you done? They are at loss of words because they have not done anything exceptional. I think almost so many of them do not have great habits. They actually drink, they actually
Right.
smoke,
Right.
they actually do not exercise much, but they have, lived till 100.
Yeah.
And you have people who want to optimize every activity in their life suddenly die of a heart attack.
Yeah. No, in fact, that's what I think. I guess it's an unconscious desire for a lot of people, especially in India, to have wanted to become an accountant because at the end of the day, no matter what you pursue, I see so many people just ending up becoming accountants at the end of the day. ऊपर ऊपर से लगता है that they are pursuing better health, better whatever ये, but when they put out on a spreadsheet all these statistics and measure themselves up to it, I think that's what we have to reconsider our relationship with all these numbers. कि are we trying to measure ourselves to that statistic, or are we measuring that statistic to ourselves, whether that statistic is right for us or not?
Exactly. No, we are a generation who have started tracking the number of hours of our sleep.
Right.
Right? No earlier
Yeah.
generation did this.
Right.
Nobody worried about how much REM sleep they had, how much deep sleep, how many times they woke up during the night,
Right.
right? And then had a tracker around their hand 24 by 7.
Yeah.
Oh my god, my stress levels are high. Oh my god, my heartbeat has increased. You
Right.
know, who knew that is how life is supposed to be,
Yeah, the ups and downs are part of it.
right?
Yeah.
But today we have people who want to sell us thousand things and who want to tell us, how by buying the next thing or by buying the next course or by subscribing to that channel, your life can go slightly above average.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, I think I would confess here, whenever I do a new course, pursue something new in my life, the immediate thought that comes to me, I've noticed, is that this will be able to get me above what other regular people are doing.
Exactly.
Right, which is some tendency that we all have. We are always burning ourselves in that desire to just be better than the other person, losing out on a lot, losing out on the experience.
And we are taking that judgment without knowing the other person's life.
Right.
We are just looking at what that person wants to show us
Yes.
on screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah. If even if we were able through some miracle to completely replicate our life like that of that person, I don't think it's going to improve our life, satisfaction. Because he might be a zero in so many other aspects of his life where we are heroes.
Right. Yes.
Right.
No, that's what I think. The very thought of it is so small minded and so easy to come to each and every one that I think a little bit of awareness will tell you that you could have been thinking about trying to be above average about any other thing, right? Why are you thinking at this point to be above average about this little thing, which is probably not going to matter to you 2 months from now?
For one, after 40 years of my life, I have stopped, and I am guilty of this myself, right? And I have been there have been parts in my life when I have tried to over optimize, overthink,
Right.
uh, become better. Now I am at a zone, Swanik, where I genuinely feel that let me start living for the present.
Right.
Life is not always about deferred gratification to such an extent where the present doesn't matter at all.
Right.
It's only the future,
Right.
right? uh, Today's present was yesterday's future.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely, absolutely. And no, I think even for me personally, what has been profoundly helpful is the concept of diary writing because uh, I wasn't too initially. I used to write about certain small elements of my life, like what was going on in my social life, blah blah blah. But I've realized over time of writing the diary, I've realized that I've started noting down ordinary things that now matter to me more than anybody else. Like what did I have for lunch? And over time, I feel those are the things that are ultimately going to matter to you because I don't know, a shift happens where the quality of that experience goes beyond the image that you have of a higher experience in the future.
Exactly.
And when this quality of the present experience, like me talking to you, transcends any uh, fake artificial dream that I had about the future, I think that is when that anxiety goes away.
I recently last year traveled to China as well as Japan, and one of the things about the Taoist cultures that excited me was the concept of Wu Wei.
Ah, yes.
Right, and it's a fascinating concept with a lot of application that you see in those countries. Maybe they don't call it by that name, or they don't, but they live it that way.
Right.
You will see, like, especially in Japan, you will see a guy sweeping the streets, just being focused on his strokes, the sweeping strokes. For the
Right.
whole his whole existence is that broom and that street, right? And when he's doing that, you almost find a sense of zen in him,
Yeah.
a sense of calm, and a sense of perfection, which is extraordinary,
Yeah.
right? And all he's doing is a very average job. Actually, sweeping streets is not really in our culture put at a pedestal,
Yeah.
but for him, it has become an art form.
Have you heard of the movie Perfect Days?
No.
So Wim Wenders, who has almost filmed art films ever since the past 5 decades, the most consistent filmmaker and documentarian in this world, just recently in 2024 came out with the movie Perfect Days, which simply captures the life in a docu-fiction sense of a simple cleaner of bathrooms in Japan. And literally goes on like a diary log of him just appreciating the moment, breathing in the beauty of life. There are like shots in between where he just looks at the skies and to admire the beauty of it. And that film has shaken the entire world, like in film festival circuits. It's a very successful film, partly because it's the guy behind it is so great, and obviously the actor as well. But that film has kind of changed our entertainment experience as well, but brought about this idea of ordinariness and average. For a regular person in today's day and age, if they look at this movie, they will say this guy is a complete loser, has not been able to be successful at any sphere of his life, but he's enjoying his life.
No, and actually, I have noticed that Japan is the cleanest country in the world,
Right.
right? Is because of people like that gentleman who was taking that average job and doing it exceptionally,
Yes.
right? And that's one nuance that I saw in every activity that they do.
Right.
We have actually glorified sushi making, but if you look at it, that guy,
Jiro.
Jiro, an intern there is just washing rice for the first 10 years of his existence and his shop,
Right.
right? It's just, can you just imagine for 10 years you're washing rice?
For most people, it will be like a jail like experience, literally.
Yeah, I mean, in the day and age where we live and the way we are conditioned, it feels like torture.
Correct.
But actually, if you think about it, if you actually get into Wu Wei, and then every action becomes like magic. Have you read about Wu Wei?
I have read about Wu Wei, so I am a big Chuangzu fan, and I had read the entire book. So I am aware of this concept, of course. Um, it's an experience that I am yet to ever feel until now.
Likewise for me,
Yeah.
up till the time I understood that this is how a great life can be lived. Unfortunately, in India, the way our ancient thought process has flown, uh, it has flown into this life is suffering, and hence you have to transcend it to reach higher states of evolution, which we have called in various different names. But what Wu Wei says is you can transcend just by doing your own job, right? In fact, they say that you have to become that activity, right? And once you become it, so there is no sweeper, there is no broom, and there is no road. They're all one. Once you have actually immersed yourself that much in your activity, then every activity uh, is elevated to such a level that it can be nothing short of exceptional,
Hmm.
right?
Just to play the devil's advocate, like from the side of India, and I would say Indian traditions, I think it's just the matter that where do you find ordinariness on your path is a little different. Like, I think we have for the time eternity emphasized the path of the warrior, the path of the person who uh, is able to find that exceptionalism, but through meditation is able to also reach to the ordinary at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, if you find that you are simply a drop of existence, and you get that quality of experience, higher quality of experience, the point of the Hindus, I would say, is that all those things you were pursuing initially would drop away by themselves, right? Would cease to have much meaning. So in the beginning they have a lot of meaning to you, but in the end they don't. Of course, the problem in today's day and age is that doesn't quite happen. We are engaged in a lifelong endless path towards ambition and exceptional ambition, we never really find out that there is an ordinariness at the end of the journey, because of which we are attracted to Wu Wei. You know.
Even the Hindu scriptures, if if you've read the Bhagavad Gita, what does it preach? You know, Arjun wanted to leave the battlefield,
Right.
because he was asked to kill his own family.
Yeah.
And he wanted to become a yogi. Right? He wanted to leave samsara.
Right.
What does God tell him? God tell him, boss, that is not your karma.
Yes.
That is not your dharma. This is your dharma.
Yeah.
You pursue your dharma.
Yes.
Right? And he said that it is better to pursue one's own dharma, even though imperfectly, than to pursue somebody else's dharma.
Right.
What is that? For me, that is Wu Wei.
Ah,
Right?
understood.
So somewhere in between, this has got lost in translation,
Yes.
wherein we have now started believing that the only purpose of existence is to, a lot of different things. But our culture values karma and dharma like any other Eastern tradition.
Right.
Right? It is just that possibly we have gotten, deluded a bit, if I may use that word. So, in every context, Wu Wei is a extremely important concept.
Yeah. And I think one of the major elements about Wu Wei, which we have not made explicit in this conversation, is that it is about losing any sense of both exceptionalism and being statistically average. Only when you shed off those layers can you lose yourself, first of all, what you ever felt you were.
Eh,
Right.
So, the very essence of Wu Wei is to forget yourself
Ha.
and become the action.
I think the question shifts from why am I anxious to who is left to be anxious.
Correct.
Right? I am enjoying so much, I am a part of life.
Correct.
Life is supporting me.
Correct. And actually, to think about it, that every opportunity that you're given to do any task, if you think of it like an opportunity rather than a burden of existence, right?
Yeah. As a game.
As a game, right?
Yeah.
And then you find the energy to do what a sushi master like Jiro does.
Right.
At his age, he finds time for 12 to 14 to 16 hours, because it ceases to be work for him.
Right.
Why? What do we read about Warren Buffett? He says that I tap dance to work every day. Right? Why does he tap dance? He is not tap dancing to work because he wants to be exceptional.
Right.
He is tap dancing to work every day because he is happy doing his average work, which, by the way, has resulted into something exceptional.
The funny part is the average caption to write for a social media reel would be, "This fellow tap dances to his work. He's enjoying every aspect of his life."
Yes.
That is the average caption. It will never sell.
But the selling part of it here is the fact that Warren Buffett taps dances to work.
True.
If we say that a
Yeah.
bank clerk is tap dancing to his work, that's not going to make headlines.
Right. Exactly.
So what we want from Warren Buffett is the exceptional life,
Yes.
not the average life that he enjoys.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So it's and if you're not following his process, how can you expect his result?
Absolutely. Leaves a lot of food for thought for this specific sentence. I think this specific sentence excited both of us.
No, so for one, I feel that just as a just as a takeaway for this discussion, is that it helps to be specific about the activity that you have chosen for yourself.
Okay.
Right? First, you have to choose some activity based on whatever raw material you have got in terms of this body and mind, right? And after choosing that activity, try to be an outlier by improving a little bit every day, right? And that is more likely to happen if you accept that activity like your work, like your dharma, like your karma, and do it with all your being, even though it might be the most average activity in the world.
And if it transcends conversations about you doing it to other people.
Exactly. If you get to that level, then you've achieved Wu Wei.
Right. Lovely. On that note, I hope we all find our own Wu Wei in life. Thank you very much for tuning in. Here's us signing out.
Thank you, Sonic.